Good morning. It's Tuesday, April 14th, and this is The Drill. Thank you very much. I'm Ron, your host and the only true conservative in the United States today. I don't take my cues from the left. I will not pretend to be neutral. I will not simply give you the facts and let you decide. I'm partisan, and I'm here to convince and persuade. I will tell you what to do, where to go, and how to hang your laundry. I created this podcast to answer the question most asked by conservatives, namely, what can I do? My podcast is short, approximately 5 to 10 minutes long, because shorter podcasts are easier to download and listen to, and shorter podcasts force me to get to the point. I've been listening to conservative talk radio since 1989. I've grown up in a socialist household, and I've seen the destructive effects of socialism up close and personal. My podcast is made available through Spreaker and can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. Today, what can I do? Quote of the day, the Constitution is absolute, and Armok. All that when I come back. Thank you. What can I do? Harass your representatives. Don't let your political representatives think they are leaders. They are representatives. Call them, email them, contact them via Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Ask them the question we all want answered. When is this going to end? Ask the question and keep asking the question until you get an answer, a definite answer. Not an approximation, but a definite answer. A date certain when we can all go back to normal. Real normal, not new normal. New normal is a contradiction in terms and doesn't exist. True conservatives are cooperative. We're independent, but cooperative. We will cooperate with the politicians' so-called orders to stay home, etc. In the former Soviet Union, the workers had a slogan. They pretend to pay us, we pretend to work. Well, today, during and because of this pandemic, the politicians pretend to lead, we pretend to follow. The politicians need to know that this faux obedience has its limits. No amount of threats, no number of snitches can keep us from being free. At the end of the day, we the people of the United States of America will exercise our free will and do as we see fit. What can we do? Simple. Make the politicians obey. Obey giant? Well, we are the giant. Next up, quote of the day. Thank you. The quote of the day comes from The Virtue of Selfishness by Ayn Rand. Quote, individualism does not consist merely of rejecting the belief that man should live for the collective. A man who seeks escape from the responsibility of supporting his life by his own thought and effort and wishes to survive by conquering, ruling, and exploiting others is not an individualist. An individualist is a man who lives for his own sake and by his own mind. He neither sacrifices himself to others nor sacrifices others to himself. He deals with men as a trader, not as a looter, as a producer, not as an Attila, unquote. Next up, the Constitution. Thank you. Knowledge is absolute, and the Constitution is an expression of knowledge, not an approximation. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines absolute as, quote, having no restriction, exception, or qualification, unquote. The dictionary further defines approximation as, quote, nearly correct or exact, close in value or amount, but not precise, unquote. Knowledge is defined as, quote, the circumstance or condition of apprehending truth or fact through reasoning, unquote. Our politicians are erroneously treating the Constitution as approximate. They assume, or perhaps pretend, that the constitutional rights are approximate, that rights can be suspended at any time for any reason. Ordering businesses to shut down and ordering citizens and residents to stay home is a clear violation of the First Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees us the freedom of association. They try to rationalize their behavior by appealing to emergency, in this case, the communist virus. The faux logic goes like this: it's okay to violate people's rights because during an emergency, the people have no rights. Remember the definition of absolute: having no exception, restriction, or qualification. Please show me any exception, restriction, or qualification when it comes to our God-given, constitutionally guaranteed rights. Remember, they pretend to act with authority, we pretend to obey. Next up, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Thank you very much. Armok is the episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation that provides an excellent example of what I'm talking about when I compare the left's wrong way of communicating, storytelling and verbal picture painting, and the right's correct way of communicating, conceptually and abstractly. In the episode Armok, Captain Picard is stranded on a planet with an alien. Captain Picard communicates conceptually, and the alien tells stories using metaphors to try to get his point across. Although waxing metaphorical may be appropriate on open mic night, it would be a disaster when trying to communicate about the space program or about nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. Watch the episode Armok to see how awkward and clumsy metaphors can be. Back in a minute. Who is a true conservative? He's the person that has the courage of his convictions and is confident in what he knows. He is the person that understands that cultural conservatism is more important than political conservatism. He's not selfish, but minds his own business. He acts like an adult. He is patriotic and uses common sense. He expresses what he knows and does so with certainty. He makes judgments, refuses to speculate, speaks clearly and definitively, and is not afraid to say no. He's open-minded, asking why rather than why not. He is consistent, credible, and influential. Not ashamed of his existence, unafraid to learn or correct his mistakes. He's a normal American, and he is better than the socialist. He's a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that. If you don't know with every fiber of your being that being a true conservative is best, then you're wasting your time. And that brings me to the end of another episode of The Drill. Remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win. Think about it.